Stanley drove along Inokashira Dori toward Hiro, where the finish line for the ransom relay was located. His demeanor was cold and brooding, in sharp contrast with Kano's gung-ho readiness. He seemed lost in some deep and cheerless thought. Kuze's voice came in over the wireless as the car came out onto Meiji Dori. "We've identified the owner of the condominium. It's..." Kano held his breath in anticipation. The name Kuze spoke caught him by surprise entirely. Okay, so this is where we actually have to jump there from Osawa, which is fine. We can do that. Let's just do that real quick. There we go. Kuze's voice came in over the wireless as the car came out onto Meiji Dori. We already read this. It's Mamoru Tanaka. He's a colleague of Kenji Osawa. What? Kano squawked. This was an unexpected twist. Kajiwara confirms that Tanaka left the Osawa residence just after 1400 hours. Just because they were gonna deliver the stuff there at the end doesn't mean necessarily that he's behind everything. No word on his movements since then. It's possible he headed to his private condo where the attaché case is slated to end up. Any officer who runs across Tanaka is to apprehend him on sight. Kuze cut the connection. I mean, still probably best to get him just in case, but still. This mastermind you've been chasing, Kano asked. Is it Tanaka? Stanley didn't reply. Fine, never mind. I just wish I could know if Tateno is safe. Still worried about that traitor, huh? So Stanley could ignore all of his questions, but still remember to make snide remarks. Talking about Tateno is the only thing that gets a reaction out of you, isn't it? Kano snorted. What makes you so certain he can't be a traitor? Tateno just isn't like that. That's not an answer, Stanley scoffed. Alright, I've watched the man work for years. I know him. He has no reason to betray the Force. You've watched him work, huh? What about his private life, then? You know all about that, too? He hasn't had money trouble or anything like that. Kano felt his blood starting to boil. I don't care what you think, he said. I trust Detective Tateno. I trust Detective Tateno. Trust him. On what basis? I don't need any basis to have faith in someone, Kano snapped. Without any basis in fact, it's just plain sentimentality, Stanley said. There's no reason or logic to it. A thin smile came to his face. Be they friends or family, you can never really know other people. The only person you can trust is yourself. And then, even then, you can't really trust them sometimes. Kano had no response for such an emotionless statement. He looked away. He and Stanley were just plain incompatible. It seemed like no amount of talking would let them get through to one another. Never take anything at face value, Kano. You start trusting too much, you're basically as good as dead. Kano just stared out the window. The Shibuya precinct came into view. Tanaka's condo wasn't much further now. They're outside of Tanaka's condo now. Over there, Stanley said, keeping his voice down. Across the street was one of the Foreign Syndicate members, walking briskly, the attaché case clutched at his side. I'm making the arrest. Kano, wait, Stanley exclaimed. Kano heard him loud and clear, but he had no intention of stopping. He approached the criminal at full speed, then leapt to tackle him around the waist. two men fell to the pavement in a tangled heap. The collision sent the attaché case flying. Kano's eyes tracked the case for a moment too long. He was caught off guard when the man threw a punch at him. The blow caught him right in the jaw, snapping his head back. For a moment, Kano saw stars. As he shook off the impact, the man sprang to his feet and sprinted away in the direction of Stanley's car. "Stanley!" Kano shouted. "Grab him!" Hit the case. Well, no, grab him. Grab him! But Stanley ignored the man and instead went for the attaché case. Oh, come on, really? Kano had no choice but to pursue the perp himself. He hadn't come this far just to let the crooks get away now. Suddenly, the fleeting man skidded to a stop. Several cars had pulled across the road ahead, and detectives were pouring out of them. His escape route cut off, the criminal resigned himself to capture. While Kana helped make the arrest, several of the other detectives broke into Tanaka's condo. Stanley, meanwhile, was carefully inspecting the exterior of the attaché case. He had already opened it. It was stuffed with bundles of banknotes. The 50 million yen ransom was back in police hands. "This is a decoy," the American muttered under his breath. "I wonder where." His words trailed off, but Kano had heard them. "What did you expect?" the detective demanded. "Samples of that new drug in there." As usual, Stanley gave no reply. The look on his face, however, told Kano he'd been right on the mark. Some of the backup team emerged from Tanaka's condo. Kano turned to them, feeling a sudden surge of anxiety for Maria. "What's the situation in there?" he asked. They told him that they'd found no one in Tanaka's rooms, so the hostage's status remained unknown, and the main culprit had evaded capture. This case hadn't been solved. In fact, it was still unfolding in the worst way conceivable. And still, Stanley remained focused on the attaché case, pondering it with a thoughtful expression. "Look," Kano told him, "I'm going to request that I be returned to my normal duties. Maria still needs to be rescued, and I still need to find out what happened to Hitomi and Detective Tateno." For once, Stanley actually responded. "Hitomi? Yes, that's it. It makes perfect sense that they'd have her carry it." "Huh? What do you mean?" "This whole attaché case relay was a fake-out." "Whoa, slow down," Kano said, wishing he could calm himself with his words. "Explain what you're talking about." "Somehow, the kidnappers made contact with Kenji Osawa and got him to have Hitomi carry the drug, separate from the ransom." "Wait, you're saying they had Hitomi bring them the drug?" Stanley nodded. "The case handoffs were a sort of camouflage. A way for them to keep the police distracted from their real goal." Kano nodded. It had indeed felt like the case relay was a decoy, an attempt to buy time. If the syndicate were after something else entirely, that would explain why so many of their actions had appeared to make no sense. "So," Kano asked, "what sort of drug is this? Why would they go to such lengths to get their hands on it?" "It's an antiviral," Stanley replied after some hesitation. "A way to cure people infected with a very particular virus." "What virus are we talking about?" "It's called UA. Kana never heard of it. Still, he could imagine the possibilities. Suppose this UA was something like the Ebola virus. It is. Discovered in Sudan in 1976, infection causes Ebola hemorrhagic fever, resulting in a high fever and massive bleeding throughout the body. At present, there's no vaccine to prevent infection, nor any drug to cure the disease after it manifests. Or perhaps HIV. Human immunodeficiency virus. HIV destroys the cells that are essential for regulating cell-mediated immunity. It can considerably reducing immune response. This effect can result in infections that would ordinarily be fought off easily, developing into serious illnesses. There are various treatments, but as of yet nothing that will eradicate the virus completely. Even the all too familiar influenza, an infectious disease caused by the influenza virus. Symptoms are similar to that of the common cold, but are much more severe, occasionally resulting in death. There are 3 main types of the virus, A, B, and C, with A and B causing the typical run of the illness in humans. Neuraminidase is recommended as an effective inhibitor, but this merely alleviates the symptoms and is not a complete cure. There were medicines that could treat all those diseases, but nothing that could cure them completely. Any drug that could do that would be worth vast sums of money. Kano, do you have any means of getting in touch with Mr. Osawa? Yes, I know one of the detectives stationed at his home. Check in with him ASAP. Find out whether or not he gave the antiviral to Hitomi. Kano suppressed a scowl. It looked like he wasn't done assisting Stanley yet. He got out his cell phone and dialed up Kajiwara. Uh-oh, it doesn't look like we can prevent this, but maybe we can choose what he says. Kajiwara picked up promptly. Kano, what's going on? Could I speak with Mr. Osawa? I suppose that'd be alright. What for, though? There's something I need him to confirm for me. It's an emergency. Alright, just make sure not to tell him anything about the investigation. Sure thing. After a while, a man's hoarse voice came over the line. Osawa speaking. Can I help you? This is Detective Kano from the Shibuya precinct. Time is critical, so I just need to cut to the chase here. Kano took a deep breath. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter Hitomi? Osawa let out a gasp. Okay, so we could jump to him again, but I don't know what that would get us. Like, because he's clearly at a bad end here, so I don't... Maybe there's somebody else who could prevent this somehow? So, for now, I think we'll just take the jump, right? I mean, we might as well. What? Osawa was so startled that his voice caught in his throat. What are you talking about? The antiviral research was top secret, so how did some detective from Shibuya Precinct know about it? Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter Hitomi? Osawa let out a gasp. What are you talking about? I'm the one asking the questions here, Mr. Osawa. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter Hitomi? I'm not sure I understand the question. Osawa's voice trembled as he spoke. I think this is a miscommunication, because I think Kano thinks that he gave it to him to hand off to the crime syndicate, whereas what he actually did was something completely different. Kano was sure he'd hit the nail right on the head. I know what the syndicate is really after, Mr. Osawa. If we say it's the virus, then he goes to jail. If we say it's you, I don't know. Let's try that. It's you. Osawa remained silent. Like, what if... Did that save him? It did. Okay. We'll keep that in mind, but I'm gonna stick with Kano for now. Mr. Osawa, is everything alright? The line went dead. Kano, Stanley chided. I would have put it more like this. They're after Hitomi because she has the antiviral. Yeah, I know that. But if they're after the antiviral, that makes the person who created it a potential target as well. Right? Ah, indeed. Looks like you do have some brains after all. Stanley flashed Kano a thin smile. Now it was clear why the criminals were after Hitomi. He saw an uneasy look on Stanley's face. "Something on your mind?" Kano asked. Stanley responded with a question of his own. If Hitomi was carrying the antiviral, how were the criminals planning on getting it from her? Well, if it's in her body, in her bloodstream, then they could get it that way, I guess, maybe? I don't know if that's possible, but it might be. Kano thought for a moment. Well, taking her by force at the scramble posed too high a risk, he said. There were nearly 100 detectives there, and they must have guessed there would be. That's why they devised this attaché case relay. They wanted to abduct Hitomi somewhere away from the Dragnet's notice. This was the plan that all the signs seemed to suggest. But still, he added, I wonder how they managed to lead her away from police protection. A look of revelation crossed Stanley's face. All they'd need to do was convince her to go of her own accord. But how? Kano asked. And then it came to him. He thought back to Hitomi's initial contact with Tariq Al-Karawan. Just before he'd taken the attaché case from her, the two had a brief conversation. It was possible Al-Karawan had given Hitomi some form of instructions then. Guess we're back to tracking down Al-Karawan again, huh? Kano could tell from the look in Stanley's eyes that he was on the verge of saying something. Probably some remark about how Teteno had allowed Al-Karawan to run free. Right now, Kano wasn't going to argue the point. After this case was resolved, he'd discover what Teteno's real motives were. And once he did, Stanley would eat his words. In the meantime, we can't just wander around looking without any leads, he said. Until we get more intel, let's see what we can do with the security cameras back at the precinct. Numerous monitors shone down on the pair as they entered the Shibuya precinct surveillance room. Each showed an array of faces of individuals somewhere in Shibuya. Kano asked one of the operators to pull up Al-Karawan's data on screen. By selecting each of the faces on monitors, in turn, they could run comparisons to determine if anyone among them was Al-Karawan. One by one, the operator made his way through the faces. Assuming their target was still in Shibuya, there was a high likelihood they'd find him. But the minutes ticked past and there was still no sign of him. Kano's tone grew more and more impatient as he directed the operator's search. Just calm down, Stanley said. He set a hand on Kano's shoulder. You keep wasting your energy when you don't need to. That's just how I do things, Kano replied. I'm energetic because I care. He pointed out another face to the operator. Well, you're setting yourself up for a short life. With a sigh, Stanley sank into a nearby chair. My brother was like you. The American spoke so quietly that his words were barely audible. 10 minutes later, a man clad in black appeared on one of the monitors. The operator lined up the cursor. The comparison check confirmed that it was Al-Karawan. Yes, Kano hissed, pumping his fist. It appeared that their quarry was simply walking around town, calm and composed. Kano radioed in Al-Karawan's location to Kuze. All units intercept the suspect on the double, Kuze ordered. Kano will provide guidance using these surveillance monitors. They saw Al-Karawan stop in front of a cigarette vending machine. Was he waiting for someone? Sasayama reporting, I've got eyes on the mutt. Perpetrator. Hook to put someone in cuffs. Dipper, pickpocket. Wants outstanding warrants. Hang paper to write multiple citations, and other such traditional police jargon. Kano's partner had evidently been nearby. I'm making the arrest, he said. There was a note of courage in Sasayama's voice. He came into view on the monitor, walking casually. At some point, he'd ditched his anime nerd costume for a cat mascot suit. Oh boy, that's gonna be fun. Oh no, Kano muttered. That getup's gonna make Sasayama stand out like a sore thumb. Shoot, the mutt spotted me. Damn it. I'm going in pursuit. Sasayama slipped out of the camera's view. Whoa, what gives? Let go of me. You're Mr. Yanagashita, right? Look, I'm sorry, but I really do need you to return that costume. Oh my god. The voices came in over the wireless. It sounded like Sasayama was caught up in an argument with someone. Okay, we can prevent this from Maria's story. Sasayama! Kano shouted as he eyed the monitor. Kano, I need some help here. Requesting emergency backup. The line went dead before Sasayama could finish. Kano didn't have the faintest idea what was going on, but obviously his partner needed him. He rushed out of the precinct. When he arrived on the scene, he saw Sasayama still in the catsuit, caught up in a scuffle with a man he'd never seen before. There was no sign of El Karawan. Sasayama, what's going on? That's an excellent question, Sasayama replied. This guy just came at me out of nowhere. He sounded pretty riled up. Sir, I need you to return this costume. My boss was very insistent on that point. The man was panting with exertion, shouting in Sasayama's face. Was he the owner of the suit? What's the deal with that thing, Sasayama? Kano asked. I bought it at a variety store on Center Guy. Figured it'd be a perfect disguise. I didn't steal anything. Sir, I'm telling you, you need to give that back. And I'm telling you, I've got no idea what you're on about. Sasayama stamped his foot. I realize that you're not Mr. Yanagashita. That isn't the issue. I just need you to return that costume. Alright, sure, I'll give it to you. I just need it a little longer, so let go of me. I can't do that, sir. I need you to get out of that suit right now. Yeah, I get that, buddy, but no can do. It's like I told you before. The zipper on this thing's snagged. Kano watched as the argument descended further and further into absurdity. Meanwhile, El Karawan was getting away. This was ridiculous. He turned to go in pursuit of the suspect. Kano, wait! Sasayama called out. Come on. Help me out, man. Huh? Help me get this thing off! Now really isn't the time for this, Kano replied. I'm going after the suspect. Oh, I get it. You're gonna ditch me here so you can take all the credit for yourself. Whoa, what? I was this close to nabbing the guy. Had a rest his mind to make. And you know it. It wasn't as though Kano couldn't empathize. If Sasayama hadn't been blindsided by this random stranger, he probably would have caught El Karawan just fine. Alright then, Kano said. He reached for the zipper at the back of the catsuit. But as Sasayama had said, the metal fittings were snagged and refused to budge. Hurry up. I'm trying. There wasn't time to do this slowly and carefully. Kano yanked down on the zipper hard. Stop! The stranger shrieked in alarm. Don't be so rough like that. But if I don't, I'll never... You mustn't. If you aren't careful, you'll cause a malfunction. Malfunction? What the hell was this guy talking about? Kano got an ever firmer grip on the zipper and pulled again. He paused in surprise as Sasayama mewled. Again, Sasayama let out a little cry. Except it didn't sound like Sasayama's voice at all. Was there really a cat in there the entire time, and Maria didn't actually know about it? I mean, I guess we'll have to play her route to know what's going on, but... guys, Sasayama said. There's something making a rumbling noise inside this thing. He sounded pretty alarmed. Uh-oh, he said the other man. It has started. His face went pale. What are you talking about? Sasayama demanded. What started? The man hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. Well, you see, this is no ordinary cat costume. Meaning, what, exactly? Our shop rented this unit out by mistake. Oh, I had no idea it was anything so horrifying. Not until the boss filled me in a little while ago. What's horrifying? You're not answering the question. The man's gaze grew hollow and distant. "Cats," he said. For a moment there was only silence. Then Sasayama spoke up nervously. Well, yeah, it's a cat. I know that already." "No, you're not listening. This is a cat's. C-A-T-S? Like I said, I already know it's a cat. Anyone can see that just from looking at it. No, not a cat. Cats! Costume as transmission system, developed by Far East Costume Rental's high-tech department. There was an official corporate notice stating this is just a prototype and potentially dangerous, so do not lend it out under any circumstance. But it was accidentally rented by mistake." The meowing started back up again. With each new mule, the sound got faster. Soon it sounded less like a cat and more like some mechanism that was whirling about. There was a sudden, fierce, blinding flash. Space itself began to warp in a roughly 3-meter radius around Sasayama and his costume. Wait, what? Okay. We're doing this, I guess. This is now an isekai. A moment later, Kano and the others had vanished. I mean, up until this point, everything had been kind of somewhat grounded in reality. Even the bad ends. They were ridiculous, but not just like supernatural, but alright. That happened. So, that's fine. We'll worry about that in Maria's route later. But for now, we have to go back to Osawa. I know what this syndicate is really after. Mr. Osawa. Osawa's mind went blank when he heard what Kano said next. He could give no reply. "Mr. Osawa," the detective continued after a moment. "Is everything all right?" Without really thinking, Osawa hung up. Osawa staggered out of the living room. He needed to be alone. To his surprise, Kajiwara didn't try to stop him. Shutting his steady door behind him, he dropped onto his sofa and then got out a bottle of pills. He stared at it, thinking back on what the detective had told him. "It's you." Detective Kano had a point. From a financial perspective, Osawa's discoveries, and indeed Osawa himself, were incredibly valuable. Immersed as he was in his research, he had never imagined he'd become a target. The kidnappers had used that artlessness to catch him completely off his guard. He thought back to the emails that A had sent him. A? Who could A be? I don't think A is Kanan, because wouldn't that be like C? I don't know. For now, they were just stringing him along, but before long, the guilt bombs might turn into more direct threats. They would extort his money, steal his research, and finally have him killed. I wonder if A could stand for Achi, but not Endo Achi, but... Oh wait, no, never mind. Achi is his first name, like his given name, so Endo was his father's name, so never mind. I was gonna say, like, maybe it's Achi's father somehow. I don't know. It was so easy to see what their plan was now. I guess A could also be I. And the worst of it was, he wasn't their only target. Kidnapping Maria would only be A's first step. Osawa contemplated in horror how his family would all be victimized because of him. There was only one thing he could do. He poured a mound of sleeping pills out into his hand. Then, without any hesitation, he gulped down the lot. The effect on his body was slow to start, but he felt a deep and irresistible drowsiness began to creep over him. As his consciousness was starting to fade, he heard the distant sound of the front door chime. Moments later, the study door opened, and Kajiwara peered inside to see Osawa lying on the floor. "Mr. Osawa, are you okay? Mr. Osawa." The detective's voice was rapidly fading out. As Osawa surrendered to the irresistible urge to drift into sleep, his mouth gaped open. "A has come for me." Those were his last words. Oh, did he overdose? Well, that's not good. I guess maybe that was wrong. Maybe we should have said Hitomi. And maybe Stanley was actually giving us a good hint there. Or maybe we should just leave after waiting for, with Minorikawa. There's a couple of different ways that we could, go about fixing that. But we'll worry about that next time. I think the first thing I'm going to try, though, is going to be to go as Kano and try saying that the person they're after is Hitomi. So, let me just jump here real quick, and then when it saves, we'll end it there. Alright. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you then.